So that's what I'm going to be talking about, child injury prevention. You have a few things in your packet that we'll be referring to, but our objectives today really are to identify the top injury issues for our children, 0 to 4, describe the importance of preventing child injuries, discuss administering the home safety checklist, which she was already referring to, and then I have some additional slides on kind of the emerging safety concerns that we're seeing that are coming up currently, so wanted to be sure to include them. So looking at why injury prevention is important, I think that unintentional injury is something that we often call accidents. You have an accident on the playground, you have an accident on the stairs, that kind of thing. But actually, unintentional injuries are not accidents. You have to keep in mind that injuries are preventable. And if they're preventable, that's predictable. And if you have certain measures that you can put into place that prevent those injuries, then you're ahead of the game. And so here's 2 examples of children who their families work with us. Gabriel Mendez experienced a near drowning and is now in a wheelchair, and his life jacket came off in a pool. His mom was distracted, and by the time she found him, he had already experienced consequences to the drowning. And so his mom is working with us. She's a parent advocate, really pushing around water safety and drowning prevention. Parker Breck was a young boy who just moved into a new home. It was a hot day, the windows were open. He leaned against the screen and fell out of a 2nd-story window. So his mom has been very active in the Stop at 4 movement to prevent windows from being opened more than 4 inches so that children don't fall out of windows. And both of these are very active parents, are concerned with their kids, all of those kinds of things. And again, it was predictable that these kinds of things could happen, but also preventable. So it's a public health issue. Unintentional injuries are the leading cause of death and hospitalization for Oregon children ages 1 to 14. It's also true for persons under the age of 44. So unintentional injury is a public health issue. And as we were just saying, they are preventable. Injuries responsible for more years of life lost than cancer, heart disease, or stroke. So that's why it's an important topic and why we're discussing it today. You can see on this chart, and I think it's in your packet as well, all of the blue squares are unintentional injuries. So you can see for infants under the age of 1, congenital abnormalities are the number 1 issue, and number 5 is unintentional injury. But from 1 through 44 is unintentional injuries. And the CDC looks at this when we look at our data. For fatalities, we're looking at death certificates and medical examiner reports. For hospitalizations, it's hospital discharge reports. And we don't in Oregon currently have data from emergency rooms, but we will in the near future, hopefully in the next couple of years, that's going to be available. But we're seeing that ER visits are, another large number, and then you've got all the rest of the kids that go to the doctor and go home, or they're treated and released, and so they're not in the data. So you can see in our pyramid here that injury is a big issue. Again, the same kind of comparison, that injury causes more, it's a leading cause of death for us in the United States. So what are we looking at for kids 0 to 4? So these are kind of our categories, and so you have your total of deaths and hospitalizations, and so our leading one for 0 to 4 are falls, and then followed by poisoning. And both falls and poisoning, we don't see a high level of fatality, but we do see a lot of hospitalizations from those. Fire and flame, kind of the same thing. The suffocation issue, the safe sleep issue, suffocation, strangulation, we see a much higher death rate from those injuries. Struck by and against is kind of your sports activity, those kinds of things. Unintentional injury is not intentional. It's not someone hitting a child. It would be struck by or against when you're playing on the playground or doing another activity. Motor vehicle traffic would include children in motor vehicles as occupants in car seats, but also the interaction between a motor vehicle and a pedestrian, between a motor vehicle and a bicyclist, and also pedestrians. No, those are separate. So it's just the interaction between motor vehicles. And so again, you know, we've seen a real effort around child passenger safety, so our deaths have gone down, but we still see some hospitalizations for our children. And then natural environment and drowning kind of come on the line there. So these are all unintentional injury areas. So keeping in mind falls, you know, you can get falls from all sorts of things. So they occur in the home, outside of buildings. So our whole issue of window falls, that's been something that we of course have been focusing on with the heat that we have been experiencing. Falling from one level to another, falls on playgrounds, scooters, skates, skateboards, slipping, tripping, collisions, those kinds of things. So you can see why that fall category is so big. And the impact from falls on a scale of 1 to 10, you know, you would have from, you know, you fell out, you need to stay in the hospital overnight because you may have had a concussion, but then the child recovers completely, or you have a fall from a window where a child maybe needs to be hospitalized for a long time. So you've got a real scan or long period of time you can look at. So suffocation, I'm sure you've been looking at safe sleep and safe sleep practices, but suffocation would be both hazardous sleep environments, and you can see a list there of different things that impact where children are left to be sleeping. Leaving children in car seats, for example, as they're sleeping is an area of concern. And then choking and hanging issues, so the whole thing about drawstrings on clothing, window blinds, choking on toys, those kinds of things all come under this category. And again, as I said, with motor vehicle traffic, it includes pedestrian, pedal cyclist, or bicyclist, as well as motor vehicle interactions between all of those as well. So when you look at child development and the risk of injury, it really depends on the age of the child what the biggest risk areas may be. And so promoting safety for all of our youth and for all of us up to age 44 wouldn't be a bad idea. So depending on your child development also depends on which risks you need to be most aware of. So the child's development stage is key to identifying really where you want to put your focus and efforts in working with the families that you're seeing. So we're going to focus really on the 0 to 4-year-old group. So for newborns, what are some of the characteristics of a newborn that may contribute to them experiencing an injury? Ideas? Sorry?
Rolling over the couch or bed.
Okay, falling off of a couch or bed. Now for an infant or a newborn, they're probably not too mobile yet, but still where you would put them makes the difference. So they sleep a lot. And so that's a characteristic to take into consideration. And when they're awake, they're pretty busy. You know, there's a lot going on. They're observing, moving, that kind of thing. They have movement and activity that's really involuntary. You know, an infant isn't, you know, if you get smacked, it's not that they were trying to hit you, it's just they had a jerk and they moved. And their nervous system, as it's beginning to mature, gives way to purposeful behaviors. But for a newborn, really, it's just reflexes. And the fact that their head's going to be sagging. So all of these characteristics can impact what kinds of injuries they may experience. Movements being jerky and erratic. So if a family understands those things with their newborn, that's going to make a difference. So children that are a little older, say up to 1 year of age, they have slower digestive rate than adults do. And so there's some concerns in that way. They also breathe much quicker, so putting them at risk of inhaling harmful gases. So, you know, you see a mom, she goes out to her car, she's warming up the car, hasn't put the kid in the car seat into the car yet, she sets them on the ground, you know, and they inhale, you know, exhaust from a car, or they're sitting next to a heater, or any of those things. So just being aware that they breathe much more quickly. They also put their hands to their mouths all the time, that kind of activity as well. and have really thin and sensitive skin. So the whole issue around burns is an important concern for infants. Anything else you can think of for children under 1 year of age? Characteristics that pop into mind?
Falls.
Sorry?
Falls, they're becoming more mobile.
Starting to be more mobile?
Yeah, so like stairs or falling off of a couch or a bed or.
Also pulling things down onto themselves.
Mhm.
If they start to
Reaching.
Cruise, yep.
So again, under 12 months of age, you've got be the beginnings of mobility, that kind of thing. So these are the top injury areas that we see for infants 0 to 1. So falls is a big one, as you can see. Also poisoning, that hand to mouth piece, and getting into things. The safe sleep or the sleep environment and the impact that has, and fire and flame and motor vehicle occupant, the child in the vehicle themselves. So a child under 1, you're not, pedestrian safety isn't a big issue, you know, bicycle safety isn't a big issue, it's riding in the car seat. So, you know, for falls, the kinds of things that work, having stationary walkers, stair gates, poisoning, of course, is having the poison center phone number programmed into your phone. Anytime you have a concern that a child maybe has ingested something or been gotten into something, you want to call the poison center. Putting things away, and then the safe sleep environments for suffocation, working smoke alarms, child-resistant lighters, those kinds of things, lowering the heat, water, so for burns, you know, keeping your water heater at a lower level. And then for child passenger safety, of course, utilizing a car seat and using it correctly. So how do you keep a baby safe? So supervision is key to keeping infants safe. And lack of supervision is always considered as a risk factor for injury or death to an infant. But there's lots of things that you can do to keep a baby safe. So how would you prevent falls? What are some things that you can do to prevent falls?
Baby gates.
Baby gates,
Not leaving baby unattended.
yeah, right, not leaving a child unattended, so when you're changing diapers, always having a hand on the baby. Any other things?
Window guards.
Okay, window guards. Now for infants, again, they're probably not gonna be climbing up on the windows yet, but, so never leaving babies unattended, installing gates, using stationary play centers, those kinds of things. How about preventing poisoning?
Lock it up.
Lock it up. What other things can you do around poisoning? When grandma comes to visit and leaves her purse sitting on the table, keeping things out of reach. So you always want to follow the instructions on labels too if you're giving medication so that you don't use too much. Using child-resistant packaging. Program into your cell phone the Poison Center phone number. We really encourage families to do that so that they have it available at any time. And then locking things up. Locking up your medicines, household cleaners, any dangerous items. So preventing suffocation, you know, you've got your safe sleep guidelines, the face up, face clear, smoke free, baby near. You've got the cribs, being sure that your crib meets current standards, and removing blankets, toys, bumpers from the sleep area. Yes.
Another thing I don't see mentioned, we had a baby pass away, that bottle was popped.
Okay.
Aspirin.
All right, that's a good one too, yeah. Not propping bottles.
Also, poisonous plants.
Poisonous plants, knowing what you have. Yeah, what they can get their little hands on. Yes.
I was just reading an article not too long ago that was talking about SIDS and the use of like car seats and other things that babies are falling asleep in, and parents are just kind of carrying them, but it's not meant as a sleeping thing. They should be kind of flat on the back.
Flat on their back. Yeah, and car seats are often seen as, well, you don't want to wake them up.
Right.
But it's not
Like the
a,
vibrating chairs.
it swings, yeah.
Some like baby products, like diaper creams, and stuff like that can be toxic,
Mhm.
if they're ingested.
It's a good point, so the things that you have around to care for the baby, you think oftentimes about your medications
Right,
or what
and
you're gonna
you
use to
change
clean the
baby's
sink.
diaper on the floor, and you've got the diaper cream out, and you grab the dirty diaper and you walk away to throw it away, and
Mhm.
so being mindful of some of those products that are used.
Yeah. Thanks.
Some moms are, accustomed to put the vapor,
Oh, yeah.
cream in their nose, the baby, they have a cold. And I heard a case that the baby was, died because couldn't breathe.
Well, and I think keeping in mind when we're talking about thin skin and the fast breathing, vapor rub under the child's nose could be a problem as well. So again, following instructions and reading labels is an important component of that one as well. So preventing burns, what kinds of things can you do to prevent burns for infants?
Back burners and turn your pot handles.
Right, cooking on the back burner, turning your pot handles back.
Don't hold your baby while you're
I'm sorry,
smoke alarms.
smoke alarms,
Turn down the water heater.
turning down the water heater is a big one. Yeah, not holding babies while you're cooking. Yeah. Okay, so setting the water heater at 200, or 120, not 220, 120. And the other is, testing that bath water, of course, before you put the baby in the bath. Not holding the baby, never microwaving baby bottles, heating bottles with warm water and testing them before feeding the baby. Okay, motor vehicle occupant injuries. So we've talked about car seats, not leaving your children in them. The current recommendation is to use a rear-facing car seat or keep your child rear-facing to the age of 2. Oregon law is 1 year of age and 20 pounds. So an 18-pound baby that's a year would have to stay legally until they're 20 pounds. But the current recommendation is up to age 2, and it really depends on the weight limit of the car seat. So if the car seat allows you to keep a child rear-facing longer, we're encouraging people to continue to use it until the weight of the car seat is reached for the child. Now, if you have families that have 14-month, 18-month children and they've already turned them forward-facing and they're comfortable doing that, then of course you just want to be sure that they're using the car seat correctly. It's just best practice recommendation. And we have child passenger safety technicians throughout the state of Oregon, and so encouraging families to take the opportunity to have their child safety seat checked and work with a technician so that they know how to do the installation, fit the seat to the child and put the seat in the vehicle. And we'll talk more about cars. Other concerns, the smoke alarms and carbon monoxide detectors and securing TVs and furniture so that they're not falling. So, children 1 to 4, what kind of characteristics do they have? Mobility, yep. They're much more mobile.
Curious.
Curious, yeah.
Creative.
I'm sorry?
I just said creative.
Yeah, very
A
creative.
3-year-old that has figured out how to move things to get to where she needs.
Mhm. That's right.
Imagination.
Doing a lot of exploring,
Imagination.
lots of imagination. Wonderful ages. So, they like to imitate their older playmates, so they may get themselves into a situation that they're not quite ready to deal with because they want to do what their big brother or sister or cousin, aunt, somebody's doing. They like to role play adult activities and use adult tools and objects. So when you're, fixing something and you've got a screwdriver and a drill, keep in mind that you're being watched. Someone may like to do that. They're likely to get hurt on a playground if they're playing on equipment that's not for their age. And we are seeing lots of playgrounds where you kind of have a playground for kids up to age 4, and then you've got the playground for the older age kids, or equipment on the same playground, so being aware of that. Again, they're still breathing very quickly, and so the whole thing of being able to suck something into their lungs from the air is something to be concerned about. And they still have thin skin, can burn more deeply and quickly, and are more likely to start fires with matches, lighters, and other heat sources. They're fascinated, they have imagination, and they're really interested in fire and how that all works. So those are things to be aware of. So here's our top injuries. For our children 1 to 4, falls stays at the top. Poisoning is second, fire and burn, and then the struck by and against, because now they're riding their bicycles, they're pushing their plastic lawnmowers, they're throwing things around, and they're also curious about what's on top of the TV or what's on top of the dresser. And still, motor vehicle occupant, they need to be safely restrained in their child safety seat. So again, main thing for 1 to 4s is supervise, supervise, supervise. So if we're preventing falls for this age group, what may be some of the activities we do?
So window guard this time.
Window guards would be good on that one, yes. And so the whole issue about climbing up and looking out the windows, parents thinking screens will keep the kids in, and they are not designed to do that.
Stair gates.
Stair gates still be an important strategy. Okay, so window guards, stair gates, you got the top 2. Stationary play centers, if you're using something like that instead of having baby walkers, being on the appropriate playground for their age, removing toys and books and things from the top of furniture, the top of TVs, so the kids aren't reaching up, thinking that you're getting it out of their way. Your 3-year-old finds something to move over there and up they go. And keeping furniture away from windows. We oftentimes in our bedrooms, the bed's under the window, the dresser's under the window, the play center's under the window. You have a tiny space where you're gonna put things, something to be considered. Preventing poisoning. So again, with this age group, what would we be wanting to be able to do? Bless you.
Thank you.
Again, just locking poisons, things up.
Locking things away, yeah. So again, following instructions, child-resistant packaging, got a good old cell phone number or programmed into your cell phone, and locking things up. Preventing fires and burns, encouraging and having families with smoke alarms, and detectors, keeping matches and lighters out of sight and out of reach. The water temperature again, and kind of setting up a kid-free zone in the kitchen. I know some families where they've used the blue tape and just put it on the floor in front of the stove for a certain distance and said that's a kid-free area, you can't go into this area, as a way to kind of visually set that up. And then the things we've already talked about with putting pans and things on the back burners, that kind of stuff. Struck by and against injuries. We have issues around kids getting behind parked cars, backing over children, that kind of thing. And so you want to always walk around your car before you get in to drive away. And wearing appropriate safety equipment, using helmets, using pads, those kinds of things. So if you're doing activities where you could get struck by or against, you've got your safety equipment on. And preventing motor vehicle occupant injuries. We have the whole issue of keeping kids in the appropriate car seat, installed correctly in the car. There's this whole thing now, especially in summer, about heat and never leaving children alone in the vehicle. Extremely important how quickly a car can heat up. And with the weather that we've been having, that's been a big issue. So never leaving a child alone in a car. We encourage you to put your purse back there, your cell phone, something that you need, so that when you get out of the car, you have to go back to get that, and you'll always remember to get your child out of the car. It's often because we're so busy and it's a change in somebody's schedule that causes these to happen. Rear facing to age 2 and then forward facing to a minimum of 40 pounds with a harness. We have a lot of child safety seats now with harnesses that go to 50 pounds, 60 pounds, so you can keep your child in a harness seat longer if you choose to. Keeping kids in the back seat. We like to say kids under the age of 13 in the back seat to keep them in a safer part of the vehicle. And again, getting your car seats checked. So here's our home safety challenge. You have this in your packet. Why don't we go ahead? So when you look at the bathroom, what were the risks? I'm sorry? No supervision. The adult wasn't in there, so the child left unattended.
A bottle of pills and the.
Bottle of pills on the sink, you got that one. How about the hallways and the stairs? No baby gates. Smoke detector, very good, okay. Parent caregiver bedroom. Smoke detector is missing. Our nursery, the child's bedroom.
Smoke detector.
I'm sorry? No window guard, that's right.
Animals in the crib.
Soft bedding and toys in the crib, very
And the
good.
smoke alarm.
No smoke detector, yeah. Okay, kitchen?
She's holding the baby.
Yeah, mom's holding that baby while she's cooking.
On the front.
Front burners of the stove, pot handles turn outward.
Poison control numbers and escape plan, fire escape plan looks like are not.
They weren't there.
On one and they are on the other.
Right, so having the poison center number posted and a fire escape plan.
The cleaning supplies are.
Cleaning supplies are out. Excuse me. And there's no smoke detector. You guys are good. All right, living room.
The TV.
It's not secure.
Yeah, TV's not secured.
So with the cord on the blinds.
Cord on the blinds.
And no smoking.
And no smoke detector. Okay, outside.
Helmet.
No helmet.
No helmet on the bike, right? Let's see what else there might be here. I think that's it, you got them all. So that is a handout too that you can use, you can take with families. The kids seem to really enjoy trying to find what's missing and what's incorrect.
I also put that mom was wearing those popovers.
Mom was wearing them?
Yeah. She has two other gloves.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't say that.
So here's on the McBee website are the safety checklists. So these are just different samples of those and they're available. Excuse me. So emerging safety concerns. TV and furniture tip overs. Laundry detergent packets. This whole thing with liquid nicotine. Sorry. E-cigarettes and then marijuana, the whole issue around edibles. So the threat really is serious for TV tip overs. We're seeing, between, the big TVs that we used to have and now with the flat screen, people are moving those huge TVs into their kids' bedrooms or into the family room or someplace like that. And so that's why we've seen an increase. Every 2 weeks, a child has died in the U.S. from being fallen over. 42% of them occur in bedrooms, and 81% occur in the home. So our tips really are to remove tempting objects from the top of TV and furniture, and anchoring top-heavy furniture. So I'm going to pass this around. This is just one example of a product that you can use to secure a TV. You can, for your large screen TVs, you can get the wall mount things that go on the walls. They can be fairly expensive, but there's also some less expensive items that people could use. Yes?
Do they have mounts for people that live in rented, like apartments and things like that, where they can't drill into the wall?
This particular one mounts to the furniture that it's sitting on.
Okay, what about like for heavy furniture, like dressers and stuff like that?
Yeah, those pretty much need to go into the wall. So it would be a discussion probably with the landlord. Yeah. And a lot of times it's awareness for the family to even think that it might fall over and what they're gonna put where. So securing TVs. There's a national website, the anchorit.gov, that has a lot of good information on it. Okay, so you have this flyer. I think that it can give some information on how to anchor things, and these are available and you can download them from that website in both English and Spanish. So liquid detergent packets are another issue that we're looking at. These are for washing clothes. Seem to be more dangerous than the ones that we use in our dishwashers. So the highly concentrated single liquid laundry detergent packets, children get them in their mouths. It causes excessive vomiting, wheezing, and gasping. Again, remember their lungs are still developing and their skin. They can get very sleepy and have breathing problems and may need to be on a ventilator. So it is a pretty big deal. And they get them in their eyes and that can cause scratches onto their eyes. So your prevention tips are just to always keep the containers closed, sealed, and stored up high. The issue is that they look like candy. And so, and they're very quick to dissolve. So even the children get them in their hands, if their hands are wet or sweaty, they start to dissolve immediately. So even if you catch them before they ingest it, you can still have problems. And then just follow the instructions on the product labels. So I would encourage families to use powder detergent instead of these packets if you can. Call 911 or call the poison center if you have any concerns at all. So liquid nicotine and e-cigarettes, more than half of the exposures occur to children under the age of 6. Again, kids mimicking the behavior of those that they model after. And they end up becoming very ill. They require a visit to the emergency department, and it causes nausea and vomiting, or really the specific things that are happening. So we're seeing a lot of these things happen. You want to protect your skin from handling these products, so that would be true of the parent as well, if they're using these products and they do that and then they touch their baby or they touch their toddler. So need to be sure that they are aware that they want to protect their skin. You want to keep them out of sight, locked up, out of reach of children. And then follow the specific disposal instructions to prevent exposure. The same issue is with pets getting into these things now. And again, call poison control. Marijuana and marijuana edibles. In Colorado, the Poison Center did a study looking after, they relaxed their marijuana laws, and they saw a spike in the number of children treated from marijuana cookies, candies, brownies, beverages. The children had respiratory problems, extreme sleepiness, difficulty in walking, and lethargy. And a lot of things that happened was that people didn't know that they were being exposed, what they were being exposed to, so they had to go through all sorts of tests to try to figure out what the problem was. And so people weren't sharing the history of the exposure. They weren't comfortable saying, well, my kid ate a brownie that we had pot in. So many of the children who had been exposed, they didn't know what it was. And so lots of different tests to try to figure out that they'd been exposed to the marijuana issues. So prevention tips, we're still developing them. There really hasn't been a lot done in this area, but legislation regarding childproofing and designs that don't appeal to children. There's, gummy bears that are marijuana edibles, and you're supposed to eat like a sixth of one. So, a little child that eats 4 or 5, they're going to become very ill. And then public education, just regarding potency and safe storage are important components of that one. So again, with our injury prevention messages, and I see some of these things mentioned on your wall charts as well, but just that you're communicating accurate information that has been proven and is practical. Present information that in such a way that it will help change behavior. People will become interested in making a change because of what they've learned. And let parents and caregivers know raising kids, we know it's a tough job, and that they're not by themselves, that there's others out there that are concerned and care and will help them to keep their kids safe. Oregon laws, these are on our website, but also, we have a lot of safety laws to protect our kids, the safety belts, safety helmets, life jackets, cribs, and child restraints. So you've got, if not all else fails, you can always say, well, it's against the law, that kind of thing. And you have a resource sheet in your packet. So information on car seat checkup events, the ability to purchase low-cost helmets. With the bike helmets, you could also check with your local Safe Kids Coalition, your local police department. Sometimes they have helmets available through that. The Safe Sleep brochure is available on the Safe Kid, or the Oregon Public Health website. A couple others. We in the Portland metro area have 2 good resources through Legacy Emanuel and Dornbecker Children's Hospital. They have safety stores, and they have all of these different safety products, window locks and guards, the things to secure your furniture, all of those kinds of things available at cost. So those are good resources as well.